Okay, students, you're welcome to class once again. I hope you had a good time in the last class, and I hope that you did the previous assignments or take-home nudges from the last class. To remind you, these are the take-home nudges. You are to attempt a suitable explanation or definition of the term communication. That is, that to come up with your own definition of that term, communication, and then explain that. Secondly, you are to discuss this quotation, the single most in this quote, the single most significant characteristic of the human race is the ability to communicate. Is that true? Do you agree with that? Or you have reservations about it? Finally, we have to discuss this quote to communication is the sum of all things one person does when he wants to create understanding in the mind of another. So, I hope you are able to do those at home. It is important you do the take home nudges or take home assignments in order for you to deepen your understanding, of the topic we covered. So today we want to continue with the second topic in the course, business communication. We want to look at communication process. Within the context of business communication, the communication process within an organization involves two or more persons participating through a medium that carries the information or message for a particular purpose, which is mutually understood by both the sender and receiver. In other words, in communication process within an organization, we have two or more people who have a shared understanding of the environment, a shared understanding of the symbols, a shared understanding of the means of communication and the symbols of communication, and these people want to pass information between themselves for a particular purpose. All these things are clearly understood by the parties. So communication is a two-way process where we exchange ideas, where there's an exchange and progression of ideas towards mutually accepted direction or goal. So when we communicate, it's not a mono-directional thing. It's not a one-way traffic. It's a two-way process where we want to exchange ideas, where we want to share ideas in a mutually accepted direction or goal. When we have these conditions, then communication will progress. What are these conditions? You said two or more individuals who have ideas that they want to share, who want to achieve a particular goal by sharing the idea or information, and who have a mutual understanding of the means or medium of sharing the information. So when we have this, these are the conditions we are referring to. When these conditions exist, then the communicative situation will take place. We will be able to communicate. So for us to be able to create these conditions, it is essential that we identify the basic elements of communication. What are the basic elements of communication that will make communication of ideas, sharing of information, sharing of ideas, a mutual understanding? What are the elements that will make it possible? These are the elements of communication process. So we hinted on this in the last class, and we have them as sender, encoder or speaker. This is where the information originates from. The sender or encoder or speaker, if we like writer, is the one who encodes, who initiates the communication process, who wants to send the information across, who wants to share his ideas. Then we have the message. The message is the content, is the information to be shared. The thoughts, it includes the thoughts, the ideas that the sender intends to pass across, the ideas that the encoder or speaker initiates and intends to pass across. Third, we have the medium or channel. The message needs a medium for it to be passed to the other end. The medium could be physical medium like paper, that is the writing medium. It could be audio medium. It could be audiovisual. It could be virtual, electronic. There must be a medium. The message cannot be passed from the sender to its destination through a vacuum. There must be a medium. At the other end, which is the destination, which is the target or audience of the information or message being sent, we have the receiver or decoder or listener. The receiver, decoder, or listener. This is the guy or guys at the other end of the channel, at the other end of the medium. Now, the communication process does not end there. The receiver needs to give a feedback. The feedback will also pass through the same thing, through the channel message to the encoder. So it is when we have feedback that the communication process has been satisfied. So here we have the elements of communication process in a diagram. On our left hand, we have the sender. That's the woman seated, is the sender, and she's using a mobile phone as the medium to encode and the medium to pass the message. So you see, she's encoding the message through text. I assume that she's texting on a mobile phone. So the medium, the virtual medium, mobile phone. Now, this message is sent to the receiver, who decodes, who reads the content of the message, and then decodes it, then send reply. That reply is the feedback. So which medium was used here? Mobile phone. What is the message? The content, either text message, emojis, or pictures, is the message being sent. However, the process is not completed until the receiver has given a feedback to the sender. So here we have it. We have in this second diagram, we have, even in the first diagram, we have noise. We have noise. Noise is below here. You can see my cursor where this orange icon on the speaker is covering. That's noise. It's better captured in the second picture that you can see. You see the sender encodes, that's the green, encodes the message using a medium or a channel. In the middle, where my cursor is, what you have on the top, at the top is message. The orange speaker icon is covering it. We have message and channel, then decoding receiver, and then we have the flow of feedback going from the receiver to the sender. However, in the middle, at the base, where my cursor is, you can see what we call noise. Noise are unwanted interference in the communication process. Noise could be caused by a number of things. For instance, emotions can introduce noise. Anything that will affect, anything that will not make the message to be, anything that will adulterate or anything that will change the message as it is intended from the sender, that is noise. People's emotions like anger will cause it, prejudices will cause it, premonitions or preconceived opinions will act as noise. Poor language skills, anything that could distort the message, that could make the message a bit different or a lot different from the original intended message. That is noise. It can come from any source, and noise can affect the sender, noise can affect the receiver. So let's look at the elements of communication one after the other. Sender is the person who initiates the communication process. A sender is the one who initiates the communication process. From his personal information bank, from the personal idea bank, he selects the ideas that he wants to communicate. That is from his head, from his thoughts, from his thinking. He decides, from his experiences, he decides what ideas or thoughts he wants to communicate to the other, to the receiver. And he encodes these ideas and then transmits them to the receiver in the form of a message. So the sender is the source of the message. So if you are a sender of message, you need to be clear about why you are communicating, what you want to communicate. You have to be certain. As you learn about communication and you try to acquire the skills of business communication, you have to learn that even in your day-to-day interaction, when you want to be a sender, in a communication process, the responsibility for clarity of what you want to communicate and clarity about why you want to do it, they're very important. You may, as the source or as the sender, have ideas, needs, intentions, information, and purpose for communication. This you are going to translate into a language or code. You're going to translate into language or code. So the process of encoding is the process of transferring the information you want to communicate into a form that can be sent and correctly decoded at the other end. So we have said that the center has ideas, information, needs, intention, or purpose for which you want to communicate. The next responsibility he has after that is to know how to code the message. That is, how he wants to transfer the information into a form which can be passed to the receiver. The second element we are going to talk about is the message, which is the information that you want to communicate. These symbols constitute the message. What information do you intend to communicate? The message could be in form of oral or written form. The message could be oral or written. It could be symbolic. Now, there are three factors that will influence your consideration when thinking of the message. Three factors that will influence your consideration when you are thinking of a message. What are these three factors? One, message code. That is the way in which symbols are structured. The way in which symbols are structured. Content, this is the selection of material to express the purpose. What material you're going to use to express the purpose, that is the content. Treatment is the third factor, the way in which the message is presented. It is the frequency and emphasis. So these three factors will influence your message. Message code. That is, how do we combine the symbols in that message? How do we combine the symbols to present our thought? For instance, the alphabets in English alphabet, we have 26 alphabet there. Each of the alphabets has symbols that must be put together. And that's why you start with 1, 2 letter word, 3 letter words when learning English language. And also, the language, like any other language, has its own internal structure. It has its grammar, it has its, semantics, and so on and so forth, that when you want to use that language, you have to be familiar with these features of it. So again, the content is the selection of material to express the purpose. The selection of materials to express the purpose. Treatment, again, is the way in which the message is presented. It is the frequency and emphasis. Okay, the third element in a communication process is the communication channel, which, as I've said earlier, refers to the medium that we use to convey a message. That is, the means by which the message travels between communication source to the receiver. Is it going through paper? Is it going through telephone, video conferencing, face-to-face meetings, letters, emails, memos, and reports? Each of these channels has things, audiences, or purposes they are best suited for under different conditions. So, channel is an important aspect, is an important element in the communication process. For instance, when you have face-to-face conversation with people, in face-to-face conversation, certain things that cannot be written, like facial expressions, like like um, like body language generally, can help convey a message better. Whereas when you type, you write letters, emails, reports, and so on and so forth, generally written channels, when you use them, it may be a little bit more difficult to convey certain things. For instance, when you say sorry, when you say I'm sorry, face to face to someone you have offended, the tone of the sorry, your facial expressions, your posture can help convey the meaning, the weight or the quality of the sorry, of the sorriness of I'm sorry. Whereas when you write it in paper, I'm sorry, it will just be flat, except you know how to include certain words that will evoke emotions in the other fellow, in your receiver. Emotions that will suggest, or emotions in reaction to the implication of the weight of your sorriness. So, in these days of mobile phones, chatting, and so on, just typing I'm sorry may not be good enough sometimes, depending on the weight of the reason for the apology. But when you add some emojis, some stickers, maybe that shows you are prostrating, that shows you are crying or weeping, and so on, it may add to the weight, it may add to the quality of the I'm sorry. So that's what I was trying to point out when I said each channel or each medium is best suited for certain purposes at certain time. So we have to take that into cognizance when we are considering the medium. For us to have effective communication, we have to consider the medium. Is it the best medium for this type of thing? If I have to make do with what I have, what other things, what other expressions should I add to this probably written medium so that it may convey, it may approximate what I want to convey to the receiver. So who is the receiver? This is the person to whom the source or sender is attempting to share information. You see, is attempting to share, because there is no guarantee that the information will be shared. There's no guarantee. Noise may affect it. Improper communication skills also may affect it, and so on and so forth. But the receiver is the individual or group that the sender is intending to share information with. So the person, the individual receives the signals and decodes or interprets the message to determine its meaning. So you see, the receiver has a lot to do. You receive the signal, decodes or interprets the message in order to determine the meaning. Successful communication can only occur when both the sender and the receiver attach the same or at least similar meanings to the symbols and the symbols that compose the message. I repeat, successful communication can occur only when both the sender and the receiver attach the same or at least similar meanings to the symbols that compose the message. The listener receives an encoded message and then attempts to decode it. This attempt to decode is carried on in relation to the work environment and the value perceived in terms of work situation. So recall that we're talking about business communication. So when the receiver receives the encoded message, it tries to decode it. And this it does in relation to the work environment, to the culture of that work environment, and the value that it perceives in terms of work situation. Feedback is the most important component of communication. Effective communication takes place when only there is a feedback. So, the feedback, again, I said, is the most important component of communication. Effective communication takes place only when there is feedback. In other words, when the receiver gives the sender a feedback, that is when we have effective communication. The errors and flaws that are found in business situations are a result of lack of feedback. Yes, many errors, many flaws that happen in business situations are because people don't give feedback. They don't try to clarify or demonstrate to the sender their understanding of the message sent. They don't try to say, am I correct? Is this what you are saying? Is this what your proposal is saying? So you find people building on erroneous interpretation of message, which eventually leads to bad business relationship. So when we don't have proper feedback, it leads to miscommunication, it leads to misinterpretation. And therefore, we have instances when one party claims, this is not what I meant, but this is not what I said. This was not my intention, and so on and so forth. So, the communication process includes the sender, the message, the medium or the media, the receiver, and the feedback. So, for the process of communication to be effective, we're now looking at effective communication process. For the process to be effective, there should be a well-defined goal in the mind of the sender. So everything starts with the sender. Clarify your goal was intending to send the message. That's the first thing. When there is harmony between the goals of the communication of communicators, harmony between the goals of the two communicators makes for good and easy progression of ideas and concepts. That is, when there is harmony, when there is unity in the goals of the sender and the receiver, then we have good and easy progression of ideas and concepts. Therefore, the sender needs to adhere strictly to the following stages in composing, in trying to initiate the communication process. The sender must be aware and should adhere to the following stages. 1, create an awareness in the mind of the receiver on the topic. Create an awareness in the mind of the receiver on the topic. For instance, say something like, I would like to talk to you about my health. Already You are conditioning the mind of the receiver to focus on health talk. 2. The sender should propose his own point of view with clarity and preciseness so as to eliminate possibilities of confusion in the mind of receiver. Propose his view or her view with clarity and preciseness. That is conciseness. So as to 3. The sender should enable smooth flow of discussion through observance of communication strategies. There are strategies of communication. One of them is what we call the tell them principle. The tell them principle in presentation. And the principle has 3 rules. First, it says, tell them what you want to tell them. Principle 2 says, tell them. Principle 3 says, tell them what you have told them. That is a framework for saying, first of all, introduce your topic. I want to talk to you about health, about my health. That is the principle of tell them what you want to tell them. And you may even add, I'll be talking about my dental health, my mental health, my this, and this about my health. And maybe I'll also name the need for me to have a medical leave. So that is tell them what you want to tell them. Then the second which says tell them is now to pick all the topics or the themes you have highlighted earlier, pick them one by one and discuss them in detail. Then the third principle, tell them what you have told them, is for you now to wrap up and summarize what you have said. So, sir or ma, spoken to you about the need for me to go on vacation because I have health issue in the area of dentition, or my dental health, my mental health, and so on and so forth. You see that when you introduce the idea you want to tell them, you condition their mind, you create an awareness in their mind. And when you elaborate a bit, you give them a framework for filing or for engaging the information you are loading them with. So, 4, reinforce or correct ideas in the mind of the receiver concerning the goal of communication. You need to find a way of buttressing the goal of communication. You have to reinforce, you have to make sure you have to make sure as the sender that the words or the information you're trying to pass is passed in correct form. Then 5, you need to achieve the goal of communication. If the communication goal is to inform, let's be sure that the receiver is properly informed. If it's to persuade, be sure that you have loaded your content with enough information to achieve the goal of communication. You have enough to achieve the goal of communication. Okay. Take home nuggets. Here we have things for you to discuss. Communication is sharing of understanding. Discuss this and bring out the process of communication. In other words, how would you share understanding by following the communication process? I will expect you to interrogate or to, let me say, include the elements in the process, how you're going to use those elements in sharing your understanding. Sharing your understanding. Okay. The second thing you need to discuss is management is a two-way traffic. It is based upon the effective machinery of communication. Discuss this group. Is management of organizations or companies really intended um, to be uh, a two-way traffic? Um, is it intended to be between a sender and a receiver, or is it a one-way traffic thing? We have to discuss these statements. It is based upon the effective machinery of communication. What is this effective machinery of communication? So this is what you need to interrogate. Now, okay, so in this module, we have the following references for further studies, which are mostly online, available online, where you can read on the topic we have talked about today. And also there are 2 YouTube videos you can watch that will enhance your understanding of this class topic. So the class has focused on communication process. What is communication process? What are the elements? And what is the process? What is the process of communication, business communication? Why is it important that in business we know how to communicate effectively? And also we check models or elements of communications where we show in pictorial form uh, how the elements of communications are connected, how they are connected. So this brings us to the end of the first part of today's lecture. I thank you very much. The teaching assistants will be available to interact with you, and if you have questions which are not handled in class, we'll reach out. You can post them on the channel or reach out or submit them to the um, class teaching assistant who will call them to me for clarification. Thank you very much. See you in the next topic. Brilliant. So our next topic is communication barriers. What are the barriers to communication? Thank you.